Okay, welcome to another monster game Pest for the AQA 2012 COMP1 exam. We're going to look at Pest number 3 and 4 this time. We're going to look at the solutions for both the LoadGame and the SaveGame validation. Both are going to be using try-catch statements. Basically, the SaveGame procedure will crash if the user enters an invalid name, i.e. some characters are not allowed by Windows, or the location is locked, the file that they've specified is read-only. And that of course could be an overwrite file, or there's a variety of things that would stop the SaveGame crashing, but chances are it's usually Windows or file handling errors. For the LoadGame, of course it will crash if there isn't a file there of that name. So if the user enters Bob and there's no Bob file there, it will crash, or if the contents of the file are wrong. So either it's corrupt, or if someone's changed the data, or if it's a file that is not of this data type, of this data structure. So you've tried to open up a Word file, something like that. Or again, if the file is locked so it cannot be read, that would also cause it to crash. One thing we're going to do in both these solutions is just be a real belt and braces approach to closing the file, because one of the things that will often cause problems for a programmer if they've opened a file and not ensured that the file's closed. It's already closed in the procedures, but because we're going to be adding extra branches in selection statements, we're going to make sure the file's closed in every branch so that we know that the files are definitely closed. Right, let's have a look at the code. And we're going to look at SaveGame first. And in fact, we're going to look at the coding for both of them and then test both of them at the same time. So the first thing we're going to do is give ourselves a little bit of space, and we're going to create a Boolean called SaveValid. So we've got a Boolean variable with the identifier SaveValid, and that's because we're going to be using the standard technique of validation of having a loop with the exit condition of that Boolean being true. So only if that Boolean is true will the loop exit. It's just going to keep going round and round and round there until it's valid. And rather than an if statement, we're going to use a try-catch statement. So all I've done is whacked in a try-catch statement with all of the input and the allocation of the data to the file within there. So if absolutely all the processing to do with the file is within that try-catch statement, if any of that throws an exception, then the try-catch statement will kick in. And the last little thing we're going to do is obviously put in the true and false assignments to the Boolean, and of course make sure that I've got a file close in the second branch of the try-catch statement. Also just need to make sure that I've got a little bit of a user feedback so that they know that the validation has failed and it's relooped. So all I've said is game failed to save. I've not tried to get clever. I could of course use this variable identifier in VB.NET to try and tell the user what the exception is and give them a little bit more feedback, but as far as I'm concerned for this Pest, I think that's more than we need. Right, now we're going to look at the LoadGame, and as I said, then we'll test both of them. It's going to look pretty similar. So exactly the same as we did for the SaveGame, we're going to put in a Boolean and initialize it as false. We're going to call it LoadValid rather than SaveValid, seems to make sense. And we're going to have a nice do loop, and we're going to put the exit condition as LoadValid equals to true. Now we're going to have a try-catch statement, and within the try-catch statement I'm going to set my Boolean as either true or false, so that if it's able to run this block of code without any crashing or exceptions, it will be set to true, and if there is an exception it's set to false, and that way it'll go round and round and round the loop until that code runs without a problem. Obviously I'm going to make sure that my file is definitely closed in both branches, so in both the branch that it's fine and not, because the last thing I want is a file left locked open. And I'm going to put a little bit of user feedback as well, just so that they know that it's failed. One thing to note is in the load, I've put all the assignments into the try catch statement as well. Don't need to really bother doing it for the save game, because I know that all these values have been created by code that was not directly inputted by a user. These values, these are being assigned from a file. I've got no idea what that file contains. So those are the two solutions: do loop, try catch, set your booleans, make sure the thing's closed, make sure the file's closed. Right, let's quickly test them. Okay, in order to have a game to save, I'm just going to quickly run a game, and we're just going to go east, east, south. Doesn't really matter, but we now just take note that that's the position of the player. Let's go back to the main menu, and let's save this game. So first time we're going to do, we're actually going to save it as a sensible name that shouldn't fall over. So enter a new file name, and I'm going to call it Game 1. Okay, smashing. That looks like it seems to have saved. Let's just load that game, make sure that it actually still works. Game 1. So that should load without a problem. And you can see it's put us in the right position. That wasn't really the best test of it, of course. I should have made sure that I've moved it. In theory nothing could have happened, but just a quick check. I know that's worked okay now. So let's just go south one more, just so I've got a different position. And this time we're going to save it, and I'm going to try and use an invalid file name. So I'm pretty sure at least one of those characters is not allowed in a file name. So hopefully the validation should kick in. And fantastic, game has failed to save, please try again. So brilliant. Right, now let's try and load a game that doesn't exist. So some random set of characters that aren't there. Game has failed to load, please try again. This time I'm going to load up game 1. And you can see it's loaded into the correct position. I guess I could have gone into Notepad and corrupted a file and tested that as well, but I can't see that happening in the exam. So I think if you do get this, and I'll be honest with you, I'm pretty sceptical that they'll ask you to do this in the real exam. It's going to be a fairly simple affair of just adding in the try catch and a quick test. And that is the load game and save game validation. So if you're familiar with normal validation and you're familiar with try catch, they were reasonably easy. And I look forward to speaking to you in the next pest.